Hi guys, welcome to the Know You More Facebook Live. It's Monday at 5 o'clock again, so we're here and we're talking about motivation this week. So again, as always, if you've got questions or comments, please post them and we will answer them as we go. Or equally, if you're watching this after it's been live, then send us an email or drop us a comment and ask away. We would love to answer your questions. So a few years ago I worked in HR, and one of the big parts of my role was actually working in engagement, so looking at what kind of made people more engaged in their jobs and more interested in what they were doing and kind of performing to higher levels. And at that time I read a book by a guy called Dan Pink called Drive, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a minute. But it was all about obviously motivation and what drives us in our work and in our lives. So it was a really kind of awesome introduction to me into kind of what really makes us tick in terms of where we find our energy and our motivation when we're doing things. And yeah, it's kind of one of those things where if we have loads of motivation and energy, we kind of feel like we can conquer anything and do anything. And when it's not there, we just kind of feel maybe bored or like we just can't be bothered to do things. So it's pretty useful to be able to have a few tools up your sleeve to find your mojo again if you have lost it. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And as always, we've got our 5 recommendations of things to focus on to really help you find your mojo and keep it going while you're doing a task or a challenge or a project. So number 1 is get amped. Okay, so this is the kind of big picture one, and this is what I was referring to in terms of the Dan Pink book Drive. He talks about these 3 things: autonomy, mastery and purpose, in being really, really important when it comes to motivation in our lives and in tasks and things that we're doing. So there are kind of broadly 2 different things that we think about. We think about motivation. There's external things to us, so maybe money, sort of incentives in that sense, or prize or something that we want to get that's outside of us. And then there's these internal factors, and he kind of breaks them down into these 3: autonomy, mastery and purpose. And in all the research that he did, he found that those 3 things, the internal stuff, if people focused on that and creating an environment where that was really important to them, that actually their performance was way, way higher than if they were kind of going for money or targets that, you know, would give them bonuses or things like that. So that's a really useful thing to kind of focus on and look at in your life. And what do we mean by autonomy, mastery and purpose? So autonomy is essentially self-direction. It's kind of owning whatever you're doing, owning your task and finding your way of doing it, kind of really forging your own way of creating something or approaching a challenge, and not having someone else give you all of the direction and tell you exactly what to do. It's kind of finding your way. And number 2 is the mastery. So it's kind of an obvious one, this one, a desire to kind of get better and better and better at something, and something that you really care about as well, something you feel like maybe is going to make a difference. And then number 3 is purpose, and we've talked about this in pretty much every single Facebook Live that we've done so far. It's kind of a biggie in everything. Purpose, it's your why, it's why you really want to do something, and it's also really linked to you. It's not somebody else's purpose. It's not you thinking that you should do something or what somebody else has told you should do. It's really all about your purpose. Getting clarity on those 3 things, autonomy, mastery and purpose, is really useful because it's kind of your foundation to act from. If all those things are in place, it's going to give you a much better chance of having and sustaining motivation through a task. So number 2 is get personal. So this is about a bit of self-reflection and asking yourself questions. So everyone's different. We've all got different things that kind of drive us. Some people are carrot, some people are stick, some people are driven by emotions, some people are driven by vision. This is about kind of finding out what really gives you your motivation. So there's 3 different bits I wanted you to think about, reflect on, and to ask yourself if you're struggling with motivation, or if you're planning to do something and you want to think about your motivation before you get going. So number one is, are you an away from or towards person? And by that I mean, are you driven more by moving away from something that you don't want, or are you driven more by moving towards something that you do want? And as an example, that could be like, are you someone who's more motivated by moving away from a job you hate or a house you don't like or being unfit? Or are you driven more by looking at your dream job and that gives you motivation and striving for? Or are you driven by the house you want to live in, the environment you want to be in, or by a specific fitness level that you want to get to? Figuring out which one of those is you are, neither is right or wrong. It's just useful to know because you can kind of put your goals around that. Number two is, when have you been motivated in your life and sustained it, and when haven't you? It's kind of an obvious thing, but taking a few minutes to sort of reflect on what has really worked, what's the environment been, or what are the things that have been in place that have really, really worked in terms of giving you that motivation, and then when has it gone wrong? And knowing that, so you can kind of plan according to what you need and what you don't need. And then number three is knowing your cycles and knowing your reactions to things. And we kind of talked a bit about this a little bit in No Time. So in terms of knowing your cycles, as a really basic one, what time of day are you more motivated? What time of the week? You know, are you a morning person? Do you have loads of motivation in the morning, or actually do you have more energy in the afternoon or the evening? So that's the best time to focus on having the motivation towards your goal or thing you're trying to work on. And also knowing your reactions. And again, neither of these is right or wrong, but do you kind of often look for the worst, or do you look for the best in something? And kind of knowing that means that you're kind of a little bit more prepared when you start. You kind of know, hang on, right, okay, when I fall, I react like this, or you know, and I kind of like, I try and give up, or I don't want to carry on, or I pick myself up easily. And knowing that means you can just have a little bit more awareness of what you need, again, to kind of get to where you want to go to. I'll talk about that a little bit more again in a few moments. But number three is get connected. So you don't have to do stuff on your own if you're a kind of person who gets a lot of energy from working with other people, or it really helps you to kind of have an external marker or an external sounding board or an external kind of person to answer to. So you can enlist an accountability buddy or an accountability coach, someone that you're going to go see every week or talk to every week, and they are going to tell, they know what you want to do and what you want to achieve. So you've got someone that you're going to be speaking to and getting reflections back on how you're doing. I can give you that little bit of an extra push if you're that kind of person who appreciates that. Also thinking about getting inspiration from people and from different places. There may be some figures that you really aspire to be like, and you can follow them on social media, or kind of just read about them, and that might give you a bit of inspiration and motivation to head towards where you want to go to, or even some hints and tips on it too. You can join groups, you can get friends involved, so you've got a bit of friendly competition. If that's something that kind of really works for you, you know, having a couple of your mates doing something too maybe will push you that bit harder because you want to do that a little bit better than your mate. It can be really, really useful. So number four is get chunky. So this one is all about chunking down and having smaller goals. And again, we talked about this a little bit in No Time, and the importance of kind of having smaller goals. You know, no Olympic gold medal winning marathon runner got out of bed one day and just ran a marathon. They kind of chunked it down over the probably years of training that they had to go through. You know, it all started with months and the first day and the first week, and then built up to get to where they get to. Sometimes I think we can wildly overestimate what we can achieve, and then if we don't manage to achieve that, we can lose heart a bit and we can lose our motivation. So actually kind of chunking down and having smaller goals means that if we achieve those little bits in increments, we kind of start building up momentum and feeling like we're actually getting somewhere and achieving something, and it gives us that bit more motivation and push to keep going. So having smaller goals can be really, really useful. And if in doubt, the old JFDI, you know, just do it. Sometimes just kind of not listening to the voice in your head that's going, oh, it's cold outside, or I can't be bothered, I'd rather stay in bed. Just literally getting yourself up and just doing something for 5 minutes or 10 minutes can start getting you back in again and breaking a cycle of feeling bad. And that kind of leads us on to number 5, which is get Scout-like. This is a bit of a weird title, but it's all about being prepared, always prepared, right? Scouts are prepared for anything. So being prepared really, really, really helps. Being prepared for urges to quit or lapses, having an idea of what you can do if that goes wrong. You know, if we're embarking on a big task or a big project and we need a lot of motivation, maybe it's that you have someone that you go talk to and say, oh my God, I've just fallen off the wagon and I don't want to lose all the progress that I've made so far, but I'm really struggling. You know, having someone to go talk to about that, or someone to give you a kick up the arse to kind of get back on it again. It's really useful to have things in your tools in your arsenal to use, you know, and the whole bit about reflecting and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't as well can be really useful in your preparation too. Make stuff ridiculously easy for yourself if you really want to get to achieving something. There are really little things that sometimes we let stand in our way, like if we want to go to the gym and we want to go first thing in the morning, or want to go for a run or something first thing in the morning, we might feel like, I can't be bothered to get out of bed, oh, I've got to get my clothes out of the cupboard. Just put your clothes next to your bed, right next to you, make it really, really easy. So all you have to do is literally roll out of bed. You can even have your eyes closed. I think sometimes when I was doing rowing training, I would literally get out of bed and cycling to the boathouse, I'd have my eyes kind of closed, but I'd have my kit next to my bed. I'd get up, put it straight on, cycle there, and by the time I got there I was glad I was up early most of the time, and on the water and training. So yeah, making it really, really, really easy for you to do stuff is also very helpful. And I think my kind of final note on this, before I just do a little recap, is, you know, don't expect yourself to be superhuman in something. I don't think there's a single person in this world, even people who've climbed Everest and done the most amazing things, who won't have had days when they really, really couldn't be bothered to do something, or where they lapsed, or they just didn't want to do it. And that's totally fine to do that. You know, all of us fall, all of us can't be asked sometimes. So if that happens, you just know that you've got the choice to try again, to pick yourself up and try again another time. Just because you've stopped at one point doesn't mean that means you should stop entirely. You can still get up and carry on. So the 5 things to remember when you're thinking about motivation are: get amped. Think about your autonomy, mastery and purpose. Is that stuff in there and in place for you so that you can really take complete ownership of the whole thing you're doing and you really, really want it? You really want what's at the end. Number 2 is get personal. Reflect on what's worked and what hasn't worked for you. What kind of person are you? What does trigger motivation and energy in you, and what really sucks it out of you? And really try and find a way of creating an environment that allows you to thrive and flourish. Number 3 is get connected. Enlist your friends, enlist your family, join a group, find a way of helping you to have a bit more accountability in what you're doing and to keep your going and your inspiration going, so it's not just you on your own. Number 4 is get chunky. Chunk down to small goals. Don't try and achieve the world in one day. You know, take everything that's huge and make it small so that you can really bite it off and take those steps towards getting to the big goal at the end. And number 4 is get Scout-like. Always be prepared. Know what you're going to do when something does go wrong or when you do lose your motivation, because it will happen. There's not much of a chance of you having 100% motivation through the whole of something. So if you know what you can do and you're fully prepared for that, then you've got much more of a chance of sustaining your motivation through something. Cool. So I'm just going to check if we've got questions, and I think we're good. So yeah, if you watch this afterwards, please feel free to leave comments and questions about anything. And next week we are talking about resilience, so everything to do with keeping yourself going. Again, it's a bit like a another foundation of motivation to an extent, but going a little bit deeper really when things get really, really tough, and how to feel resilient in the face of really, really challenging times. So it's not going to be on Monday next week. I'm not sure on the day just yet, but we will post on Facebook which day and which time we're going to be doing the Facebook Live. But thank you for tuning in, and I hope you found some useful stuff in there. All right, cheers, bye.